An image allows you to use your imagination a little bit and fill in the blanks. So if an image has backstory, then people are captivated.
We've had punches thrown at us, spat at, keys thrown at us, anything they can get their hands off sometimes. It seems to end up in our general direction.
What makes me good at shooting food? Well, I suppose is what makes anybody good at shooting whatever they shoot.
My photography is predominantly people and artists and musicians. I really like connecting with people, so I tend to put the emphasis on that. In '96, while I was in university, I started going to these underground hip-hop clubs, and I was so inspired by the passion and the perseverance and the dedication that these young artists would have for their craft that it inspired me to want to capture the moment. I shot video and I shot photography, but I ended up really gravitating towards the photographic aspect and trying to capture the passion of these artists in a two-dimensional format. And it was sort of from that seed that I began really getting into shooting a lot of artists and musicians and really getting to know people in the hip-hop community. I think my clients come to me because I make the experience very comfortable. The whole process is about vibing with somebody and trying to capture something that's real. And I'm very good with color, and I'm very good with capturing something honest and intimate. And I feel that even if somebody's in a bad mood, if they're in a good mood, I'm always able to pull something out of them that feels like it's more than a portrait, like there's a backstory to it. And people tend to like that, especially artists and musicians like the fact that it's not just a pretty picture, it's a picture that tells a story. Recently did a shoot with an artist named Voice, and I'm really proud of the imagery I got from that particular shoot. It wasn't the longest shoot I've ever had. Just energetically, he and I vibed really well, and me and the stylist and makeup artist and management all just worked together and collaborated, and I think I got some of my best work out of him. And he was a very charismatic and down-to-earth and humble young man, so it was very easy to get nice shots, but I'm pretty proud of the work I did with him. And again, still the same image that I had way back, that was one of my first shots when I was in St. Vincent, and it was just a close-up of a woman's face. It's still one of my favorites to this day, because I'm telling you, her face just told a million stories, and every time you look at it, you just pull something different out of the image, so that's still one of my favorites. But recently, just in the span of the last year and a half, I think I've come up with some of my best work and some of my most inspiring work. Ultimately, I like to just shoot what inspires me, so I usually vibe off the person I'm with and creatively kind of let it come to me that way. My photography is a way for me to meet really diverse and interesting people and finding a way to express what I'm attracted to in them in a two-dimensional format, which is a challenge. A good example would be Eric, who I'm shooting tonight. He's a very dynamic and charismatic and funny human being, and the challenge for me is being able to capture that photographically and have people feel the way I feel when I see this man perform and when I hear his music. I saw him perform last August, and I was moved by his performance so much that I actually called a few people in New York and tracked him down and went to New York and shot him along with Stuart Matthewman and some indie groups, Heavy and Ivana Santilli. And so I went down to New York and did a whole roster of artists and musicians and stuff from New York that I really was inspired by and moved by. He's an extremely talented artist, and I'm just honored to have the opportunity to shoot with him and work with him and try to translate what it is he brings to the stage. The one thing in New York that I wasn't able to capture was that spontaneity and that humor, because I was doing 4.5-second exposures. So now that, you know, we're in a situation where there's a little more control, I'm excited at the prospect.
You know I prepared to co-write this song, right?
Because I started off shooting music, it's something that kind of comes naturally to me. In terms of a challenge, I guess it would be just making sure that you're interpreting what the artist wants and what they're telling you they want and what they actually want, and making sure that it actually translates or corresponds with the type of music that they're putting out. So sometimes people will tell you they want one thing, then you'll listen to their album and you'll realize, no, visually or from a marketing standpoint, they might want to consider another direction. In those kind of instances, I usually shoot what they want, and then I'll ask them, I'll take a moment and interpret it the way that I feel it should be interpreted so that they have both options. 9 times out of 10, they go with the image that I wanted to shoot intuitively in the beginning. Ultimately, I think the biggest challenge is just hearing each other and making sure that we're on the same page visually. I love being in the moment and just working and being spontaneous. And I actually love the process of taking photos and connecting with people and just working off the energy of the moment. I know that sounds kind of cliche to say working off the energy of the moment, but I absolutely love like the challenge of meeting a person for the first time and figuring out how I can capture their essence or capture what they're about. My goal eventually would be to use my photography to build awareness about issues that concern me, like poverty or certain political issues. One shoot that I did was about the war in Iraq, and the other shoot that I did was about consumerism and how major corporations are using imagery to sell us false hopes or false fears so that we go and buy their product. One of my goals is to teach children in impoverished communities how to do photography and hopefully inspire them to be creative and show them other outlets for their creativity, and eventually use their imagery to help them raise money for their communities. Right now, I use photography as a means to express myself and to capture different personalities in a way that does justice to the people that I'm shooting, so in a way that's honest and that's respectful. And ultimately, I think I just want to have integrity in everything that I do. And I want that to transmit with my photography. I think people are fascinated with images because they tell stories. And the difference between like a photograph and watching video is you can let your imagination take you to a place that it may be real or it may be fantasy, but it allows you to kind of be creative. I mean, people are captivated. It doesn't matter what the picture is of, as long as there feels like something's going on. And I think that's what people's fascination with it is, that they can kind of fill in the blanks and come up with their own interpretations. I hope that people are inspired when they see my work. I hope that people feel like I've accurately captured the people in the portraits. Like emotionally, I strive to try to capture a range of emotions from sadness to anger to indifference. And I just want people to be inspired. And I want people to leave feeling like there's no gimmick. It's just, my photography is just raw and real, and it is what it is. And hopefully people get that and leave feeling that they made a connection.
If I can do a story where it has an impact on somebody's life and makes their life a little bit better, then I come off the winner as far as I'm concerned. I'm a photojournalist. I cover news, sports, and some feature work, but the news is what I enjoy most. It's one of those jobs that you could be shooting a fire 1 minute and off to Government House to shoot something with the governor. There's just no 2 days the same. I get called up 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning sometimes to, to get out and cover a story. So just basically, it's not a typical job. That's why I love it. Because Bermuda is small, it's 21 square mile with about 65,000 people, not a lot happens. You'll have days where we have bank robberies or gang-related incidences, and then you might go for 2 or 3 days with just really a dry period. And those are days that we actually have to go out and find a news picture, that's quite challenging in its own right. We are very lucky at the Gazette because our deadline actually doesn't finish till about 12:30, and if something breaks late, we can hold off to about 2 in the morning and still make the press. If you had asked me years ago whether I wanted to go digital, I would have said no. I was dead against it. But when the management came over and said that we were definitely going digital, I guess after about 2 or 3 months after that, I had completely changed my mind. You cannot tell the difference of a picture of today's quality as digital, what has been shot by digital and what's been shot with regular film cameras. The quality is really quite amazing. And which is also great is that because we are the only daily newspaper in Bermuda, we get a lot of calls from foreign papers, foreign news agencies to get images to them. So in the old days, we had to literally go and find a scanner, which we didn't have, and get it transmitted and stuff like that. Whereas today now we can basically do it from the car just after we shot the picture. Just a matter of setting up a laptop with a cell phone, putting the camera to the laptop, and off it goes. So that they can actually get an image quicker, sometimes quicker than when I get back to the office. All right, that's that. Now time to follow the pictures. The Gazette is quite unique. We have a policy where we always put a local picture on the front page of the paper. Lighting is very important in our pictures, and we always have to have a lot of local culture into our pictures. But we got a number of quite famous residents, Michael Douglas, Cedar Jones. They have a house out here. We don't hound them. We don't consider ourselves paparazzi photographers. We do not go chasing them. If the situation comes up where there is a new story involving them, then we will cover it. But as far as following them around and hiding in bushes, that's something that we just do not do. I would have to say one of my most scariest moments I spent working as a news journalist was in Bosnia when we were covering the relief containers going into Bosnia. I was taken by a UN guide, and as I was shooting, there was a crack and a thud, and he pushed me down and said, "Stay down, stay down." And there was another crack and a thud, and come to realize that a sniper had spotted us and taken a couple of shots at us. The press did have a bounty on their head, but at the end, it worked out well. Just after the September 11th, we went to New York with a family who had lost their son in the World Trade Center. And to cover the reaction of the family when they first saw the devastation of the collapse of the towers was a challenge. You didn't want to intrude. You didn't want to feel insensitive. But I was there. I did have a job to do, and they appreciated it. But I had a hard time shooting these pictures. It really had an amazing effect on me. Of course, just after the anthrax scares that happened in the States, Bermuda also went on high alert. There was a number of instances where envelopes appeared that had, of course, white substances on them. Again, that was something else that we had covered, which was also quite interesting. The paper, the Gazette, is almost like one of those papers everybody loves to hate. It's the only daily, and when we're covering certain court cases, especially if they're gang-related, or we have a hostile crowd around the courts, or family members who really don't want to see their family members on the front page of the Gazette, we've had quite a number of instances where we've, apart from being verbally abused, but sort of physically as well, we've had punches thrown at us, spat at, keys thrown at us, anything they can get their hands off sometimes. It seems to end up in our general direction. Obviously, being a news photographer, you really do have to be immune to personal insults and brush off personal attacks that you get when covering news stories. None of us have ever lashed back out. It just would not be professional, but it happens, and you just put it into your little diary as one of the stories you're going to tell next time you go drinking with the guys. I studied fashion photography, and I found it hard working with fashion models and makeup artists and art directors, and then I sort of dabbled a bit into photojournalism, and I felt that's where I enjoyed my work. And if I can do a story where it has an impact on somebody's life and makes their life a little bit better, then I come off the winner as far as I'm concerned.
It's funny, sometimes you will spend 6 hours working on a photograph, and finally it's approved, and then you'll set up the second photograph, and it's approved instantly. And you wonder, like, what was the difference? The first shot, it took us 6 hours. The second shot, it took us 6 minutes. But you never know. Let's try one in this little space here. That's good. Hover the spoon over the center of the pan a little bit more. I'm just gonna get you to wiggle it a little bit so we get a bit of blur, so it looks like it's exciting. I think of myself being 16. If I had known that this is what I'd be doing today, I'd just be blown away, because I thought I'd be slaving away doing something I hated, and I'm not. I love it. I'm slaving away doing something I love, you know? Food is, it's fun, it's homey. I think people have a good time around food. Everyone likes to eat. Everybody likes to hang out in the kitchen. People need to look at this stuff and feel like they can actually do it. Otherwise, the recipe gets a little alienating. You just kind of look at it and go, well, that's awesome if I had a professional cooking team. But the trick is to make recipes that people can actually make. Even if they don't make them, they still feel like they can relate to it, which is, you know, which is good for obvious reasons. It used to be, I think, that the food thing was more artificial. It was never as artificial as people think, because the first thing people ask is, it's all fake, right? Usually we say, yeah, that's right, it is. But actually the real answer is that we don't want to wreck this great steak because we actually want to eat the thing. So sometimes when you just chuck the stuff in the pan, carefully, of course, you know, with skill and all that, and wisdom.
Years of experience.
In years of experience, it ends up looking really great. But once in a while, there'll be a little something you'll see, like this broccoli guy, where we're just looking right into the cut bit.
Yeah, and looks like a starfish.
Yeah, just flip them a little bit for me, would you?
Okay.
Yeah, that's good. That's great. Yeah. What makes me good at shooting food, I suppose, is what makes anybody good at shooting whatever they shoot. You need to be sensitive to the trends and the fashions and the styles, and hopefully you like them, and be able to work them into your own thing so that you're not just repeating what you see out there. And so that when your clients come to you with their ideas and the challenges that are always built into the projects, you can roll with it and bring it what you want to contribute, and hopefully build something interesting out of it, something better. And if we're going to make the food look really real and relaxed, the propping, the objects in the shot, should look really real and relaxed as well. And sometimes on a piece of silverware, a little bit of tarnish is good. It gives it detail, it gives it patina. I mean, you don't want to make it look dingy, but a vintage feel can go a long way. It can be great. It's actually hot. No, it's all right. You know it's real when the pan's burning your hands. I've really enjoyed working on the books that I've done. What you're doing is you're taking a very, very large snapshot, and you know, instead of capturing a story or a job in 1 or 2 images, you're capturing it maybe in 200 or 300 images, and that gives you quite a lot of responsibility and quite a lot of leeway to really stretch out and really capture a lot of interesting stuff. Because sometimes, if you're featuring a chef or you're featuring a restaurant, maybe a picture of the staff out back having cigarettes is part of the story, because it really happens and it's interesting. Because I come from a journalism background, and I feel like I'm still chasing the story in some way. Sometimes I look in magazines and I see stuff that I don't really like, but more often I'll look in magazines and see things that I really like. I mean, in a way it's sort of painful, but the best feeling that you can get when you look at a magazine is jealousy. You see it and go like, oh man, I wish I shot that. The world has changed when we're shooting digitally, or even if we're shooting with Polaroids, we can scan things or send the digital files by email or FTP to a client, approving shots during the shoot and looking at it and going, yeah, that's great, or can you know, change a little bit of this, or can you try a different version? It's interesting because they don't necessarily have to be right there in the room with you, but they're reacting to something that's still live on the set, it's still happening. So on shot number 2, I kind of was playing around and I moved the camera and got a different angle, an angle that I wasn't really asked to do. The only problem is that I hadn't done it on shot number 1. So the art director called me and said, hey, that angle looks great. Can you do it on shot number 1? So we're gonna redo shot number 1. This is why we don't throw anything out until the end of the day, because sometimes you have to rebuild something. I like to always keep in mind that the payoff that I want to have is to be able to get up in the morning and make my living in the arts, and that's all that's really important. And if that means my career has to take a different shape at some point and I have to change what I'm doing, then that's fine, and I'll shoot something different, because I just want to keep shooting.